Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. A wedding was meant to bring families together, not peel them apart layer by layer. Yet on the morning of her wedding, Amara Hale felt no excitement, no nerves, no rush of joy, only a steady calm that felt almost unnatural. She stood alone in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection as sunlight poured through tall windows and settled softly on white walls and polished mirrors. The room was flawless. Every flower had been placed with care. Every chair aligned perfectly. Everything had been paid for months ago, quietly without argument or delay. Her wedding dress hung nearby, elegant and understated, waiting patiently. Amara touched the glass of the mirror and exhaled slowly. She didn't look like a woman about to begin a fairy tale. She looked like a woman standing at the edge of a truth she could no longer ignore. Outside the door, voices floated through the hallway, planners calling instructions, shoes rushing across marble floors, laughter sharp with expectation. But inside the room, Amara felt detached, as though she were watching her own life unfold from a distance. She had learned long ago that calm often came before confrontation, and today, whether anyone else knew it or not, something was about to shift. Seated near the window was Naomi Hale, Amara's mother, adjusting a thin silver bracelet that had never left her wrist. It was old, worn smooth by years of work, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. Naomi had never been loud, never demanding. She carried herself with a gentle dignity that did not beg for approval. She watched her daughter carefully, noticing the stillness in her posture. "You're unusually calm," Naomi said softly. Amara smiled faintly and turned toward her. "You raised me to be," she replied. Naomi reached for her hand. "You look beautiful," she said, not because of the dress or the setting, but because she saw strength in her daughter's eyes. Amara squeezed her fingers. "Everything I am," she said quietly, "comes from watching you stand without asking permission." Naomi's eyes softened, but before she could respond, a sharp knock struck the door, impatient, abrupt, out of place in such a carefully curated morning. The sound echoed longer than it should have. Both women looked toward the door, the calm in the room disturbed by something neither could yet name. The wedding coordinator stepped inside, her smile strained, her clipboard held a little too tightly. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said carefully. Amara frowned. "What's wrong?" The woman hesitated, glancing briefly at Naomi before looking back at Amara. "There's a request," she said, "from your fiancé's family." Naomi stood slowly, already sensing the direction this was heading. "What kind of request?" Amara asked. The coordinator cleared her throat. "They'd like to speak with your mother privately." Silence stretched across the room. Amara's jaw tightened. "About what?" The coordinator avoided her eyes. Naomi placed a calming hand on her daughter's arm. "It's all right," she said gently. "I'll go." Amara searched her face. "You don't have to," she whispered. Naomi smiled faintly. "I've faced worse than uncomfortable conversations," she replied. She smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, and followed the coordinator out. Amara watched the door close behind her, a strange unease settling in her chest. She didn't know yet that this interruption, so small, so quiet, would fracture the illusion of unity everyone had been pretending to share. Outside the bridal suite, Naomi was not met with courtesy, but with judgment disguised as control. Elliot Rowan's aunt stood first, her posture rigid, eyes sharp with quiet disdain. "This seating arrangement won't work," the woman said bluntly. Naomi blinked once. "I'm the bride's mother," she replied calmly. Another relative stepped closer. "We think it would be better if you sat elsewhere," he added. "This is a very prominent family event." Naomi folded her hands. Elsewhere where? She asked. The aunt scoffed. Let's not pretend we don't understand appearances, she said. Some guests may feel uncomfortable. Naomi felt the insult land, sharp but familiar. Uncomfortable with what exactly? She asked quietly. The woman's lips tightened. With where you come from. Naomi inhaled slowly. She had learned long ago not to argue with people who mistook cruelty for class. Please step away from the ceremony area, the aunt continued. Security has been notified. Naomi looked toward the double doors, leading to the hall where her daughter would soon walk down the aisle. For a moment, she considered pushing back. Then she exhaled. I won't make a scene, she said evenly, but my daughter will know. The relatives exchanged knowing looks. She married into our family, one of them said smugly. She'll understand. Naomi turned away, her dignity intact, unaware that the ground beneath their feet belonged, legally and completely to her. Inside the suite, Amara felt the change before she saw it. When Naomi returned, her face was composed, but her eyes carried weight. Mama, Amara asked softly. Naomi hesitated, then spoke plainly. They don't want me at the ceremony. The words hit harder than shouting. What? Amara whispered. Naomi placed her hands gently on her daughter's arms. They said my presence might embarrass their guests. Amara's breath caught. Anger rose instantly, sharp and unfiltered. But beneath it was something colder, recognition. She had seen this arrogance before, hidden behind polite smiles. Who said this? She demanded. Naomi shook her head. This is your day, she said quietly. Don't let it be ruined. Amara stepped back, her expression hardening. It already is, she replied. Just then, Elliot entered the room, adjusting his cufflinks, smiling nervously. Everything okay? He asked. Amara met his eyes. Your family just removed my mother from our wedding, she said evenly. Elliot froze. What? She didn't soften her tone. Did you know? He looked away. His silence answered her. In that moment, Amara understood something clearly. This wedding was no longer about love alone. It was about power, respect, and whether silence would be allowed to win. The ceremony began as planned, but the meaning behind it had already shifted. Amara walked down the aisle slowly, her posture straight, her face calm, her eyes sharp with intention. The guests admired the venue, the sweeping garden, the flawless stonework, the quiet luxury that whispered wealth rather than shouting it. Elliot's family sat proudly in the front row, nodding with approval, murmuring about taste and status as if they had personally created the beauty around them. One uncle leaned back and said with a satisfied smile, This place suits us. Amara heard him. She said nothing. She stood beside Elliot as vows were exchanged, her voice steady, her words honest but measured. She meant what she said, but she no longer believed love could exist without truth. When the officiant declared them married, applause filled the space. Cameras flashed, smiles widened, champagne waited, and still Naomi stood at the edge of the grounds, unseen by most, watching her daughter with quiet pride. When the reception began, Amara did not rush to celebrate. She waited. Timing mattered. When the music softened and attention settled, she reached for the microphone with gentle confidence. Before we continue, she said with a small smile, there's something important I'd like to share. The room quieted instantly. This venue holds deep meaning for my family, Amara continued, her voice warm but deliberate. Some guests nodded politely. In fact, she added, pausing just long enough, it has belonged to my mother's family for over 15 years. A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Elliot stiffened. Amara's eyes found his relatives. Which makes it interesting, she said calmly, that my mother was asked to leave her own property today. Silence fell hard. A nervous laugh escaped one aunt. That's not funny, she said. Amara met her gaze. I'm not joking. She gestured toward Naomi, who now stood tall near the entrance. My mother also holds ownership in the estate some of you currently live on. Gasps followed. Whispers broke loose. Elliot turned toward Amara, stunned. Amara! She raised her hand gently. You knew enough, she said quietly. You just didn't think I would speak. The room shifted from celebration to reckoning. Amara handed the microphone back and walked straight to Naomi, taking her hand. You're not leaving, she said softly. Naomi squeezed her fingers. I never planned to, she replied. Around them, pride collapsed under exposure. Elliot pulled Amara aside near the floral archway, his voice low and strained. Why would you do that? He whispered. Why wouldn't you? She replied evenly. They humiliated my mother. His jaw tightened. You embarrass my family, he said. Amara's eyes sharpened. My mother was embarrassed first, she answered. You're just feeling the echo. Naomi's calm voice cut through gently. Peace built on silence isn't peace, she said. Elliot's mother approached, her tone forced sweet. You're part of our family now, she said. You shouldn't shame us. Amara turned fully toward her. I won't belong to any family that requires my mother to shrink, she replied. The words landed heavy. The room listened. Elliot finally stepped forward again, his voice trembling as he took the microphone. Everyone, he said, my family was wrong. Gasps followed. Naomi, he continued, I'm sorry. You were disrespected. Naomi nodded once. She accepted the apology not as closure, but as a start. Amara stepped beside her. My mother belongs beside me, she said calmly, and anyone who cannot respect that does not belong close to my life. No one argued. They couldn't. The wedding continued, but the power had shifted permanently. Guests who once avoided Naomi now approached her carefully, offering politeness shaped by fear rather than warmth. She accepted nothing she didn't believe. Later, as music softened and guests thinned, Amara stood on the balcony overlooking the quiet grounds. Naomi joined her, placing a shawl around her shoulders. You didn't have to do that, Naomi said gently. Amara turned. I did, she replied. For us. Inside, raised voices echoed, Elliot arguing with his parents. Amara didn't rush in. When Elliot finally joined her, his face tired, his voice honest for the first time. I didn't realize how deep it went, he said. Amara met his gaze. You didn't want to, she replied calmly. That's the difference. He nodded slowly. I need time. So do I, she said without hesitation. There was no anger, only clarity. And clarity, once found, could not be undone. In the weeks that followed, silence spoke louder than apologies. Elliot's family stopped calling. Lawyers reached out instead. Amara declined meetings she wasn't ready for. She returned to her work, her routines, her grounding. Naomi remained unchanged, quiet, dignified, lighter somehow. One evening, Naomi said something Amara never forgot. They didn't look down on me because I was poor, she said. They looked down on me because they thought I needed them. Amara nodded. The wedding had not been a beginning. It had been a test. Love, she learned, wasn't proven in vows spoken under chandeliers, but in choices made when power was questioned. She had chosen dignity. She had chosen truth. And whatever future awaited her marriage, it would be built on alignment, not silence. The venue, the estate, the wealth, those were details. The real inheritance was self-respect, and that once claimed could never be taken away. Time did what confrontation could not. It revealed patterns. Weeks passed after the wedding, and Amara noticed how silence replaced performance. Elliot tried to show effort in small, careful ways. He listened more than he spoke. He stopped defending his family automatically. He asked questions he should have asked long before the wedding. One evening, as they sat across from each other in a quiet cafe far from family eyes, Elliot finally said, I thought marrying you meant stepping into your world. Amara looked at him calmly. You expected me to step into yours quietly, she replied. The truth settled between them without shouting. Elliot exhaled slowly. "I don't want that anymore," he said. Amara did not respond immediately. She had learned that words spoken after fear needed time to prove themselves. "Then your actions will have to speak," she answered simply. There were no threats, no ultimatums, just clarity. That clarity changed the tone of everything that followed. Boundaries were set. Visits became structured. Disrespect, even subtle, was no longer tolerated. Naomi remained present, visible, unapologetic. For the first time, Amara felt that her marriage, whatever shape it would ultimately take, was no longer built on illusion. One afternoon, as Amara sat with Naomi in the garden of the estate, watching sunlight move across the stone paths, she understood something fully. The wedding had never been about ownership or wealth. It had been about assumption. Elliot's family had believed power flowed only one way, and that belief had shaped their cruelty. Naomi broke the silence gently. "Marriage reveals people," she said, "including ourselves." Amara nodded. "I saw who they were," she replied, "and I saw who I am." Naomi smiled softly. Then the day did its job. That realization brought peace, not the fragile kind built on avoidance, but the solid kind built on truth. Amara no longer felt the need to prove anything. She wasn't protecting peace by swallowing injustice. She wasn't shrinking to be accepted. She had corrected a narrative that was never hers to carry. And once corrected, it could never return to its old shape. Looking back, Amara understood that the wedding had given her something far more valuable than celebration. It had given her sight. Her husband's family had shown who they were when they believed power belonged solely to them. And in that moment, Amara had learned who she was as well. She was a woman who would stand beside the person who raised her, without apology, without explanation. She didn't walk away angry. She walked forward informed. That knowledge, quiet and irreversible, became the foundation of every decision she made from that day on. The shock her husband's family felt was never about property. It was about realizing they had misjudged the woman who married into their lives. And that realization, like dignity once reclaimed, could never be undone. Months later, life had settled into something calmer, but stronger. Amara no longer lived on emotional alert. She moved through her days with intention, no longer second-guessing her instincts. Elliot had changed in visible ways. He spoke up when his family crossed lines. He no longer minimized discomfort to keep appearances intact. One evening, as they walked through the gardens of the estate, Elliot broke the silence. "I used to think peace meant keeping everyone comfortable," he said. Amara slowed her steps. "Peace means no one is sacrificed," she replied. He nodded. "I understand that now." It wasn't a dramatic moment. There were no promises. But for the first time, Amara heard understanding rather than defense in his voice. That difference mattered more than grand apologies. Trust, she knew, did not return all at once. It returned in patterns, who spoke up, who stayed quiet, who chose courage when it was inconvenient. And she was watching carefully. Naomi remained the quiet center of Amara's world. She never reminded anyone of ownership or influence. She never used power to demand respect. She simply existed fully, calmly, and visibly. At a small family gathering months later, one of Elliot's relatives approached her hesitantly. "You raised a remarkable woman," she said. Naomi met her eyes gently. "I raised her to know her worth," she replied. That was all. Amara watched from across the room, understanding that dignity did not require performance. It required consistency. She realized then that the greatest lesson her mother had given her wasn't patience or sacrifice. It was self-respect without bitterness, the kind that doesn't seek revenge, the kind that simply refuses to be diminished. In the end, the wedding was no longer the story people remembered most. What lasted was the shift that followed it. Amara had not exposed arrogance to embarrass anyone. She had done it to protect truth. And truth, once spoken, reshapes everything around it. She had learned that love without alignment would always ask for silence, and she would no longer pay that price. Standing beside her mother that day had not ended her marriage. It had defined it. Whether the future held growth or separation, Amara knew one thing with certainty. She would never again question her right to defend dignity. The estate would change hands one day. Wealth would move. Titles would fade. But the moment she chose to stand, calm, clear, and unapologetic, would remain hers forever. And that, more than anything else, was the legacy she intended to keep. With time, Amara discovered that clarity did not make life louder, it made it quieter. Decisions became simpler. She stopped explaining herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. When Elliot's family eventually requested a formal meeting, Amara declined politely. "Not now," she said. "We're still learning how to speak honestly without pressure." Elliot supported the decision without argument, and that alone told her something had shifted. One evening, as they sat in their living room reviewing plans for the coming year, Elliot looked at her and said, "I'm starting to see how often I chose comfort over courage." Amara nodded. "Awareness is the first responsibility," she replied. He smiled faintly. "And action is the second." She didn't praise him. She didn't reassure him. Growth, she had learned, did not need applause. It needed consistency. Naomi continued her life unchanged, waking early, keeping her routines, refusing to be reshaped by other people's discomfort. One afternoon, as she and Amara shared tea, Naomi spoke thoughtfully. "Power is strange," she said. "People only respect it when they fear losing something." Amara considered this. "Then dignity must be the only thing worth protecting," she replied. Naomi smiled. "Exactly." That conversation stayed with Amara. She realized that wealth had only been the trigger, not the lesson. The real lesson was visibility. Her mother had always been powerful, but she had never needed to announce it. That was what unsettled people the most. Amara felt gratitude settle deeply in her chest, not just for the woman who raised her, but for the moment that forced her to choose alignment over approval. As months passed, the story of the wedding softened in public memory, but its effects remained firm in private lives. Elliot's family learned caution. Invitations became careful. Conversations became restrained. Amara noticed who reached out sincerely and who stayed distant. She didn't chase either group. One night, Elliot admitted quietly, "I used to think love meant loyalty to family at all costs." Amara met his gaze. "Love means refusing to let harm hide behind tradition," she said. He nodded slowly. That understanding did not fix everything, but it created a foundation where honesty could grow. Amara accepted that some relationships survived truth and others did not. Both outcomes were necessary. In the end, Amara did not measure success by reconciliation or praise. She measured it by peace. Real peace, the kind that doesn't require silence or shrinking. She stood beside her mother without apology. She stood within her marriage without illusion. And she stood within herself without fear. The wedding had exposed pride, but it had also revealed strength. Amara did not need revenge, validation, or applause. She had chosen alignment, and alignment had given her something unshakable. The story did not end with cheers or drama. It ended with certainty, and certainty, once claimed, does not fade. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.